2 children are dead, 14 children injured, and 3 adults are injured. This after a gunman opened fire at the Annunciation Catholic Grade School in Minneapolis, Minnesota. After killing the 2 children and injuring 17, the gunman, who according to court records in 2019 changed his name from Robert Westman to Robin Westman, killed himself. Here's Annunciation Catholic School 5th grader Clarissa Garcia describing her experience.
So I was just at church and I heard something like really loud, like I thought it was fireworks in the church, and then I saw the shooting, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so scared. And so a teacher led me downstairs to like the preschool classroom, and so I went there, and me and my friend Cece were just praying.
Shortly after that, Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara gave this update.
Question from Matt was, how are the injured students doing? I believe all of them have their parents with them now, and they are all expected to survive. All of the remaining victims are expected to survive. There is a range of injuries, however. I have no information to share on a motive, other than saying again that there was some sort of manifesto that was timed to come out on YouTube. It's been taken down, and our investigators are going through that to try and develop a motive from that. Additionally, there are these 3 search warrants happening in residential locations, and we may very well, find more information or writings that could give some sense to that, but we don't have that now.
During that same press conference, Minnesota Governor and former 2024 Vice Presidential candidate Tim Walz said this.
It's Minnesota's day today, and it's my strongest desire that no state, no community, no school ever experiences a day like this. So I ask the rest of the folks around the country who are watching, keep us in your thoughts and prayers, but also keep us in the thoughts for action. Keep us in the ideas that we can work together. And it's on these days like this, I think, and I hope we can hold on to it. We are unified as a community. Everybody across the country today is part of the Annunciation Parish, and they're with those families.
And once Governor Walz wrapped up, Annunciation Catholic School principal said this.
Within seconds of this situation beginning, our teachers were heroes. Children were ducked down. Adults were protecting children. Older children were protecting younger children. And as we heard earlier, it could have been significantly worse without their heroic action.
Following that press conference, United States Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem took to X to say in part, quote, "This deranged monster targeted our most vulnerable, young children praying in their first morning mass of the school year. This deeply sick murderer scrawled the words, 'For the children,' and 'Where is your God?' and killed Donald Trump on a Rifle magazine. This level of violence is unthinkable," end quote. Meanwhile, today, United States Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy announced the Department of Transportation plans to reclaim management of Union Station here in Washington, D.C. Here is the United States Transportation Secretary.
We are going to take DOT from our partners back under DOT control, and we are going to make the investments to make sure that this station isn't dirty, that we don't have homelessness in Union Station. We think that we can manage the property better, bring in more tenants, bring in more revenue, and that revenue is going to allow us to make investments in this beautiful building. It needs investments. It's been, I think, neglected for decades, and it's showing its age. And again, we want to make this place beautiful and the premier train station, not just in America, but the premier train station in the world.
And we have more news out of Washington, D.C., and this might surprise mayors of other big cities like Chicago. Today, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser praised President Trump for cracking down on crime here in the nation's capital.
This federal surge has had a significant increase on crime in Washington, D.C. And we greatly appreciate the surge of officers that enhance what MPD has been able to do in this city. The difference between this period, this 20-day period of this federal surge, and last year represents a 87% reduction in carjackings in Washington, D.C. I spoke with the president this afternoon, and I was reminded of our first meeting after his reelection, where we discussed shared priorities for the district. There, I was reminded that the president's interest in cities predates his time in office, and his knowledge of D.C. had significantly increased from the first time he was in the White House.
Also today, President Trump imposed 50% tariffs on nearly all goods arriving from India. The 50% tariff is part of Trump's punishment for India for buying Russian oil. Former White House Chief of Staff in the first Trump administration and former Republican Congressman from North Carolina, Mark Meadows, joins me. And Mark, unfortunately, the news of the day is the horrible, violent shooting out in Minnesota. And I don't know, I never know what to say in these shootings. I've covered them all the way back to Columbine, these school shootings. So maybe you have something to say. I do not. They're just tragic, horrible, and they don't stop.
Well, they are tragic, and they affect us not only for us because we can envision our loved ones being in the same situation, and yet one of the things that we're seeing in Washington, D.C., Greta, is that when you have additional law enforcement officers in and around and perhaps making those places not only of worship but our schools a little bit more hardened from a standpoint of these infiltrations, that's something that we have to consider. And I know it's something that going back even when I was a freshman member of Congress, I looked at to make sure that the resources are there, not just in the big schools, but in every school across the country to make sure that they have the resources to protect our children. But our prayers and our thoughts are certainly with those that were in harm's way and those families that were affected by this horrific action. And Secretary Noem put it very well in her statement. But when we look at this, it is critically important that we remain vigilant, not only in our schools but in our cities. And we're seeing that was a remarkable statement by Mayor Bowser as it relates to the crime in Washington, D.C. And I used to say that the federal government was not good at much of anything other than defending our country, but we're seeing this president take action in the nation's capital, and you and I both know people that are very close that have lost their lives or have been affected by crime in our nation's capital, and so it's a welcome support by this administration.
Well, first, my remark on the killer in Minnesota is that I do not believe, of course, there's still more information to disprove what I think, but I do not believe he just woke up today and decided to do this. I believe that we're probably going to discover that there's a lot of information preceding it and that a lot of people sort of look the other way, and why it's so important if you have a child who is acting like this or do something that you take action and report it. That's the first thing. But that's just my wild guess. As for Mayor Bowser, I think her statement is extremely significant. And I think it really is a message to mayors around the country. I mean, the mayor in Chicago doesn't want the President Trump in there trying to stop crime. But when you hear what Mayor Bowser said, I mean, it is so extraordinary how much she said that in the first 20 days of this month compared to a year ago, 87% reduction in carjackings from a year ago. I mean, the amount of crime and what President Trump has done in 20 days here in this city, if I were the mayor of Chicago, I'd be begging him to send the troops when I hear Mayor Bowser saying these things.
Well, I've had the privilege of working with Mayor Bowser when I was in Congress and also in the White House. And the one thing that is to be applauded here today is this hand in glove approach. I mean, she mentioned it in her response, in that this was a response in helping the Metropolitan Police Department there in D.C., very capable men and women. And so this federal response is to augment that. But here's the other thing is those other mayors should take a lesson, because it's not just on sending National Guard and federal law enforcement officers to make sure that D.C. is safe. But if you were to say we're going to reduce crime by 87%, what mayor in the United States would not say, please send us as much as you can? Let me just tell you, they're not shy about asking for federal relief when they have a fire or a hurricane. They were not shy about asking for federal relief during COVID. This has more implications in terms of communities and making sure they're safe. They shouldn't be shy now. Let's go ahead and make sure our major cities are safe. I look forward to seeing what happens in D.C., not just with crime, but also with what's going to happen with Union Station and other parts of the city as we have this federal-local partnership.
Well, she said her word for it, and she is a Democrat. Which shows she is not playing politics. She cares about crime in the city, because she said, we greatly appreciate the surge. If she had just been silent, then she'd be playing politics. But the fact that this Democratic mayor in a large major city is sending basically this, is first of all, is being grateful to the President of the United States for helping, but is also sending a message to other Democratic mayors around the city is, wake up, because this is working here.
Well, it does, and it's very courageous of her. I mean, listen, 6% of the people in Washington, D.C. voted for this president, which means 94% did not. And so when you look at it, her constituency, those people that keep her in office and put her in office, largely were not embracing this president. But yet, she's able to see the good that has come out of it in the last 20 days, and it's affecting every single one of her constituents in a positive way. And bravo to both of them. And hopefully we'll find the mayor of Chicago following suit to show the same kind of courage. But it was a good day, and I was glad to hear that from Mayor Bowser.
I was too. Former White House Chief of Staff and Congressman Mark Meadows, thank you, sir.
Great to be with you. Take care, Greta.
Coming up, France is issuing a warning. Who is France warning and why? That when the record continues. French President Emmanuel Macron is snapping back at Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Why? Well, Netanyahu points to rising anti-Semitism in France, and Macron denies it. Macron wrote a blistering letter to Netanyahu calling Netanyahu's claims an offense to France. Macron also warned the Israeli Prime Minister that the scourge of anti-Semitism should not be weaponized. Macron appealed to Netanyahu to, quote, end the desperate race of a murderous and illegal permanent war in Gaza, causing indignity for your country and placing your people in a deadlock, end quote. Macron's letter was in response to Netanyahu's strong criticism of France's plan to recognize a Palestinian state. Netanyahu accused Macron of fueling anti-Semitism. Meanwhile, the Israeli military has carried out a raid in the occupied West Bank. Dozens of Palestinians were injured. Israel has not yet identified the purpose of the operation there. Middle East correspondent Zach Anders is in Tel Aviv with the very latest word. It is 1:16 in the morning. He joins me. Zach?
Good evening, Greta. We have breaking news within the last hour. There appears to be an Israeli commando raid that is taking place in Syria as we speak, just south of Damascus. This is unconfirmed. We're getting word from some of our sources here in Jerusalem that this is the Israelis that are right now with their helicopters and Air Force flying over the city, and that there are boots on the ground. We do not know any more than that, but this is a very precarious moment, again, when you're talking about the IDF heavily involved in Gaza with a massive force deployment there, calling up tens of thousands of reservists. As you mentioned, the IDF operating in the West Bank for those commando raids. And here we have another theater in Syria, and it appears that with this Israeli involvement, having been on and off for the last few months, that this is certainly something we should watch out for in the coming days and hours. Now, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff says that the White House expects Israel's war in Gaza to be settled by the end of the year. This as 50 hostages remain in Hamas captivity. And this afternoon, a joint statement from all members of the United Nations Security Council, except for the United States, declared a famine in Gaza is a man-made crisis. This joint statement included China, France, Russia, the United Kingdom, and 10 other non-permanent members of the Security Council. The United States is the only nation that was absent from that joint statement, with acting U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Dorothy Shea, questioning the integrity, like the Israelis do, of the UN report published earlier this week, finding northern Gaza is in an active famine. Elsewhere from Vatican City today, Pope Leo, in an address made in Italian this morning, called for humanitarian law to be fully respected, stating in part, quote, I endorse the joint statement issued yesterday by the Greek Orthodox and Latin patriarchs of Jerusalem, calling for an end to the spiral of violence, for an end to the war, and for priority to be given to the common good of the people. His statement here follows word from the Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem, Cardinal Pier Battista Pizzaballa, who was in Gaza today. He says that clergy and nuns from the Greek Orthodox and the Catholic churches in Gaza City will not evacuate and will continue to shelter what they're saying are hundreds of civilians at their respective churches. This as the massive Israeli ground offensive in Gaza City is looming outside the last major area that the IDF has yet to enter with a full deployment. We have learned today that the IDF has asked those churches to evacuate. This came after their statement that they would not listen to any evacuation notices. And again, the Pope here saying he supports their mission and that they will remain in their churches in Gaza. Now, should the IDF follow through with Prime Minister Netanyahu's objective here, I'm told this is going to last for months, and that's largely because of how the metro area itself, Gaza City, has certainly been hit very hard from the air, but ground forces have not moved into this city of about 1 million people, and the tunnel network largely remains intact. And reports today from the IDF are confirming that mass evacuation notices to the city, or the city's remaining inhabitants, I should say, the IDF is saying is now inevitable as those Israeli troops continue to mass on the outskirts of the city. And this is after Prime Minister Netanyahu's cabinet approved battle plans to conquer Gaza City earlier this month. Israeli Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer, he was in Washington earlier today with U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, stating that the White House would hold post-war Gaza plan meetings at some point today, but Minister Dermer's team, the Israeli minister, had not confirmed whether or not he took part in any of those meetings. Greta?
Zach, okay, the 3 operations going on that you just reported about, the West Bank, Gaza, and now this Syria. Is the Israeli military, can they keep sustaining this? Because it's a very tiny country, and I know that everyone is required to be part of the military. You can call it up any time. But these military actions seem to be, I mean, this has been going on now for several years.
And this is a massive demographic problem for the Israelis as well, because mostly the IDF is pulling from the secular population, still religious, but not the ultra-observant, the Haredim or the ultra-Orthodox, which it's all kind of tied together. You've been seeing all those protests about the mandatory conscription for the ultra-Orthodox. They've been refusing to be conscripted and serve. So this population, and I should say that the Arab Israeli population does not primarily serve in the IDF as well. So you've got a small shrinking demographic within the Israeli population that is the IDF right now. And they are stretched incredibly thin. And the reservist call-up, I mean, I know people that have been working their regular full-time job and are working on or have had their 5th or 6th call-up into the reserves at this stage of the war. They're exhausted. Every soldier you talk to answer that question, if you were to ask them directly, would say, no, we cannot do this. We're stretched way too thin. The political leadership says otherwise.
Zach Anders in Tel Aviv, thank you. Milwaukee Circuit Court Judge Hannah Dugan remains in legal hot water. In May, the Wisconsin judge was indicted for concealing a person from arrest and obstruction of justice. Dugan is accused of using her courtroom to help a man evade ICE. The incident was caught on camera. The man that she was helping was in the United States illegally. He was also charged with 3 misdemeanor counts of battery. Dugan has fought to have her own charges dropped. Her lawyers, in asking to drop the charges for the judge, cited the Supreme Court decision in Trump versus United States. But today, the judge presiding over Judge Dugan's case denied that request. The judge noted that the Supreme Court ruling does not firmly establish judicial immunity for criminal acts. Coming up, a top U.S. diplomat has just been summoned by a foreign government. Why and where? That when the record continues. The top U.S. diplomat in Denmark has just been summoned. Earlier today, Denmark's foreign minister requested a meeting with the U.S. envoy to Denmark, Mark Stroh. This came after the country's public broadcaster reported that a number of American men have tried to conduct influence operations in Greenland. According to an investigation by Danish public broadcaster, at least 3 Americans with ties to President Trump are conducting active operations in Greenland. One of the American men involved reportedly made a list of Trump's supporters in Greenland. The other 2 men have reportedly made contact with politicians, business people, and other citizens. The broadcaster said this is a cause of concern because these people could be used to support Trump's goal of annexing Greenland. As you may know, President Trump has been very vocal about wanting to annex Greenland.
We need Greenland for national security and even international security, and we're working with everybody involved to try and get it. We've been dealing with Greenland, and we have to do it. We really need it for national security. We need Greenland for national security. We need Greenland, very importantly, for international security. We have to have Greenland. It's not a question of, do you think we can do without it? We can't.
Earlier today, Denmark's foreign minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen released a statement that reads in part, quote, "We are aware that foreign actors continue to show an interest in Greenland and its position in the Kingdom of Denmark. It is therefore not surprising if we experience outside attempts to influence the future of the kingdom in the time ahead," end quote. Former United States Ambassador to the Kingdom of Denmark from 2017 to 2021, Carla Sands joins me. Nice to see you, Ambassador.
Great to see you, Greta.
Okay, I know this is serious to Denmark, but really 3 people are in Greenland talking to people who live there.
Yeah, what do you think that the Danish embassy in Washington, D.C., our capital, is doing every single day? They're trying to find out what Americans want covertly and overtly. That is what embassies do, and that's what friends do. They want to know what their friends are thinking and what they're doing.
Well, it does. I mean, it does seem like it's gotten that they're a little bit paranoid about this, although the president said interest, but so what? That doesn't mean these 3 men are doing anything wrong. But the idea that the charge d'affaires, because we don't have an ambassador there currently, was summoned, it sounds like he got called to the principal's office.
Well, yes, and Denmark's terrified that Greenland's going to leave and become independent, which Greenland has said a majority of Greenlanders want to be independent. So they will go independent. And Denmark can't afford to develop or defend Greenland. And as a matter of fact, I was demarched. I was called onto the carpet by the Danish government when I was Trump's ambassador to Denmark, and they demanded that I denounce President Trump. This was after January 6th, and I told them that I was disappointed that they had never called to check in how we were doing during the riots of 2020, and how dare they demand such a thing.
What's it like when you get called? I mean, where do you get called to?
Well, generally you get called to the government buildings, but during COVID, you get called by the phone.
It does sound like the principal's office.
Well, they had a lot of nerve, and they still have a lot of nerve. They're trying to drive a wedge between the U.S. and Greenland. Greenland wants to prosper. They want to have more business, more good employment, high-paying jobs, and they're not secure, and they don't have that good employment because Denmark keeps them on kind of a low welfare payment, just keeping them going, but not letting them prosper.
Do you anticipate, I mean, you're looking into your crystal ball that you brought along with you, I'm sure. Do you anticipate that Greenland is going to be part of the United States in some way?
So, there are many ways to be part of the family and be completely independent. One that comes to mind is called a COFA. It's like a free association where Greenland would have their own government, decide all their own laws, and the U.S. would secure Greenland so that we can get trade and defense over to, say, the UK or Europe, while also doing trade cooperation where the government, the U.S. government, could backstop companies investing in Greenland where it's very difficult to invest in Greenland. There's no infrastructure.
Isn't that sort of what Greenland has with Denmark? I mean, Greenland is independent in many ways.
In many ways, but Denmark is a small economy. It's about 6 million people. The economy is about the size of the state of Colorado. Denmark has no chance of developing Greenland. They can't afford it, and they can never afford to defend it. And they have no intention, otherwise they would have.
But then it sort of seems inevitable to me that Greenland would want to, or I guess if I were in Greenland, I'd want to play Denmark off the United States. I'd be very clever to see who I can get the best deal with, or the better deal with.
Of course, Greenlanders are very savvy that way, so they're working it. But Denmark is terrified that Greenland's going to leave, so trying to drive a wedge between the logical big friend of Greenland who would make sure that they're secure and prosperous.
When you were ambassador to Denmark, did you go to Greenland?
Of course I did. I went to Greenland. It's a wonderful place. The people, though, really want opportunity. They told me they want their kids to learn to speak English, not Chinese, as their second language. They want success in their tourism, so they need some help developing that to build that capacity, and they want success in their mining, and they've really struggled to get that going. So we were able, when I was ambassador, my team, working with the Trump White House, we were able to get funds to Greenland for their mining, their tourism, and this involved like Department of Interior, Department of State. But we were able to also put a consulate in Greenland to begin our diplomatic relations, which they had been over for almost 70 years.
That must make must make Denmark nuts. When that happens, because they want to hang on to Greenland, but they really can't offer to Greenland the things that the United States can because of the magnitude of the two sides of the countries.
It's driving Denmark crazy.
All right. In order for this to happen, back to that crystal ball, is it the vote of the people of Denmark? Is that how they would vote?
It's the Greenlanders' decision to vote to go independent. And then there's something in the Constitution of Denmark that they actually have to approve that. But I think there are ways around that. So
basically they could hold them prisoner if they wanted to.
I think that holding people hostage in the Western world is probably not an okay thing.
It's probably it's not. That it is sort of interesting. It's sort of like the mouse that roared with Denmark trying to hold on to Greenland when they can't provide anything that we could. And of course, we have national security and minerals. There are a lot of reasons why the United States would like to have Greenland in our family.
Yes, absolutely. I think that it's like owning an asset you can't afford to own, so you don't improve it, and it kind of doesn't get better over time.
Anyway, all right, Ambassador Carla Sands, thanks. We'll have to see what happens.
Thanks, Greta.
And pink slips at FEMA. More than 20 employees at FEMA have been placed on administrative leave. This after signing an open letter to Congress titled The Katrina Declaration. The letter argues that the Trump administration is reversing decades of reforms made after Hurricane Katrina in 2005. The letter was signed by 191 current and former FEMA employees, but only 35 of those employees attached their names to that letter. And now the FEMA employees who chose to attach their names have been placed on paid administrative leave. According to CBS News, those employees received emails from FEMA that reads in part, quote, while on administrative leave, you will be in a non-duty status while continuing to receive pay and benefits, end quote. Coming up, President Trump mastered the art of the deal from trade and tariffs to now restaurant marketing? That when the record continues. We've been following the school shooting in Minneapolis. This morning, 23-year-old Robin Westman opened fire during a back-to-school mass. The shooting occurred at the Annunciation Catholic School. Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara said Westman approached the side of the church and shot dozens of rounds through the windows. 2 children, age 8 and 10, were killed. 14 other children and 3 adults were injured. Police believe Westman died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound at the scene. This afternoon, authorities gave this update.
The weapons used to perpetrate this horrific attack. There was a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol. All 3 had been lawfully purchased by the shooter. At this stage, we believe that the shooter had acted alone. There is no indication of other suspects directly involved in carrying out this attack. We are also aware of a manifesto that the shooter had timed to be released on YouTube. This manifesto appeared to show him at the scene and included some disturbing writings. That content has since been taken down with the assistance of the FBI, and it now remains under active review by our investigators.
Retired Sergeant of the Philadelphia Warrant Unit and the co-author of the new book, Philly Warrant Unit, Mark Fusetti joins me. Nice to see you, sir.
Good to see you, Greta. How you doing?
I'm doing very well, and I got your book last week, read it last week, and just randomly booked you for this night, not knowing what happened in Minneapolis. But in reading your book, what struck me is this, is that when you go to execute a fugitive warrant or some other warrant, you never know what's going to be in there. And for instance, the Sergeant Joseph LeClaire, your first example, was killed. And what it reminded me of today, those officers who responded to that church, they had no idea going in whether there's another person there, there's another booby trap, whether there's a booby trap. They had just no idea, and and the enormous danger.
It's one of the scariest situations a law enforcement officer can ever be in. You're going somewhere, and you have no idea what's going to happen. You don't know what's behind the door. You don't know what's going through a person's mind. It could be the simplest warrant for a DUI, or it could be someone like this who's involved in shootings, killing people. The anticipation, the uncertainty, it's an adrenaline rush, but it's also a fear that, can overwhelm some people.
Yeah, I mean, just being, a fugitive warrant, you go into a house, they let the door open, you go into a dark part of the house, and you don't know if someone's just lying there and wait behind a chair to shoot you.
And that's what happened to Sergeant LeClaire. When they went into that, in the book, it's the first chapter, when they went into the apartment to arrest this fugitive wanted for rape, he was waiting. He sat in the bedroom, what we don't put in the book, but he had his hands hidden under blankets. When Sergeant LeClaire went in, show me your hands, he shot him through the blanket. It's one of those situations you almost cannot defend against. If they want to sit there and sacrifice their life, their freedom to take an officer out, they're going to do it. It just happened a couple years back with a Philly SWAT officer. As they were going down the steps, the guy just sat there and shot through the wall, and unfortunately, took a life of a Philly officer.
In the past couple of years, I know that a lot of police forces have had recruitment problems, and partly because I don't think the American people has always showed the proper respect for the police officers, but I also don't think they respect the enormous danger that these police officers face every single day. And, do you have sort of a thought on the morale and what it's like to be, an active duty police officer now?
Yeah, from Philadelphia, from the people I know here in the city, and some of my friends that work outside the city, it's that what's going to happen? Is my boss going to have my back if I pull this car over tonight? And I try to do the right thing, but something goes sideways. There was just a recent trial of Officer Mark Dial here in Philadelphia, where he was put in jail for murder by the district attorney Larry Krasner here, a George Soros backed district attorney. 2 years of his life going through the trials. He was convicted of voluntary manslaughter. And when he went to court and had a sentence, the judge even realized the jury got it wrong. Gave him time served, allowed him to continue on with his life. But every cop in this city is wondering, is this district attorney going to do that to me? If I truly try to do my job, but something just happens. Things happen when you have the best intentions. And that's where the morale comes down. Finally, the Philadelphia Police Department has a great leader, Commissioner Bethel. So it's a little better for the cops, but there's still that key factor, the district attorney.
What do you make of President Trump? I mean, we're actually feeling a little bit safe here in the city. President Trump is very much involved with it. And now Mayor Bowser, who's a Democrat, has expressed her great appreciation, I think is the word, for the police surge here in this town. Would that help in Philly? Do you need that in Philly?
I was actually just down in Washington for the Phillies Nationals game and saw the National Guard around town. And we walked around at night. I didn't want to, but I felt a little safe. So it was nice to see. And yes, it could help. The good thing here with Philadelphia is the police department is given their leeway to do the job. And unlike some other cities that are run by Democrats, here we have a new mayor, new police commissioner. They kind of allow the police to do what they have to do. The issue here is the district attorney. He's the one where the cops can make all the arrests, they can stop all the crime. But once it gets into his courthouse, he's the one that causes the problems. If there's a new district attorney, which there could be in November, I think the city would be a bright star and a shining star for everybody in the country to say, hey, look, maybe a Democrat-run city can do it the right way if you allow the cops to do their job.
Sergeant Mark Fusetti, thank you. And your book, I read it, I've been involved in criminal justice system for years, and I got to tell you, I learned a whole bunch of new things, had new insights reading your book. So I appreciate you writing. Thank you, sir.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Greta.
Cracker Barrelgate. It's over. The short-lived scandal turned the country upside down, but now everyone is at peace. Things have settled down hours after President Trump blasted Cracker Barrel for changing its logo, and then the company announced the original logo is here to stay. Cracker Barrel wrote on X in part, quote, "We said we would listen, and we have. Our new logo is going away, and our old-timer will remain," end quote. President Trump and Americans across the country were in a tizzy over the redesign. On your screen to the left is the original. On the right of your screen is the newer proposed logo. The new logo removed both the picture and the words Old Country Store. After Cracker Barrel reversed course, President Trump took to Truth Social. He said, quote, "Congratulations, Cracker Barrel, on changing your logo back to what it was. All of your fans very much appreciate it. Good luck in the future. Make lots of money, and most importantly, make your customers happy again," end quote. Yeah, I know. This has been quite a scandal. You can't make this stuff up. Coming up, if you're afraid of heights, this might make you feel a tad bit woozy. We're going to explain what these people in China are doing thousands of feet above the ground. That when the record continues. Alligator Alcatraz, the migrant facility in the Florida Everglades, could be empty in just a few days. That's according to an email exchange shown to the Associated Press. As you know, Florida's emergency management built the migrant site, and according to the AP, the head of Florida's emergency management emailed a rabbi about religious services at the migrant facility. The official said, quote, "We are probably going to be down to 0 individuals within a few days," end quote. Alligator Alcatraz was built about 2 months ago. It was to house up to 3,000 detainees, but since it opened, it has faced 3 lawsuits. A federal judge even ordered it to wind down operations by October. Donna Adelson, is she guilty or not? Today was day 4 of the testimony in the trial of Donna Adelson. She is the 75-year-old grandmother accused of hiring hitmen to kill her former son-in-law, a law professor. And today, a jury heard a flurry of evidence related to calls, text messages, voicemails, and wiretaps. The records were obtained by the Tallahassee Police Department. Police Sergeant Christopher Corbett was questioned about those records. The jury also heard from an undercover federal agent. He wasn't shown on camera to conceal his identity and to keep his cover. He testified about posing as a gang member and trying to shake down Donna Adelson for money. Back with us tonight is lawyer and anchor for Court TV, Julia Janae. Julia's been covering this trial from day one and knows it inside and out and better than anyone else. Julia, tell me today, what was the best thing that happened to Donna Adelson and what was the worst thing in the testimony?
Oh, the best thing is that they don't actually have her on those wiretap calls saying, let's plan the murder of Dan Markell. That is the best thing for her defense. But some of the worst things is that she did act very cagey after that, what you described as a bump, that undercover agent who came to pretend like he knew all about their plot. And remember, this was 2 years after the death of Dan Markell. And Greta, I know you said you were here in Tallahassee covering this when it happened. It was a mystery. No one knew why this law professor, who didn't seem to be dealing in anything nefarious, would have been gunned down in his driveway without a robbery or anything else connected to it. And from the public standpoint, this looked like it was an unsolved case 2 years later. But behind the scene, those law enforcement officials, the FBI was involved as well. They were working on their hunch that the Adelsons were involved, the in-laws of this victim. So that undercover agent was able to get them talking on the wiretaps, and she talked in code to her son. She talked about needing to meet with him because something happened, and she said they wouldn't be able to go to police. I saw some jurors writing that down. So it's been a day with the investigation certainly on display.
In the opening statement, did her lawyer give any hint about whether there was going to be an affirmative defense presented, or did he just talk about how the prosecution has the burden of proving guilt beyond a reasonable doubt?
Oh, yeah. So far, I'm not hearing about the affirmative defense. Now, they do point to the children as potential suspects. We know one of those children, Charlie Adelson, he's already been convicted of this case. So this defense has squarely put the fault on him and potentially on the daughter, Wendy Adelson, who has not been charged in this case. We believe from the pretrial hearings that she may take the stand. Her son took the stand 2 years ago, so she may follow suit to try and tell her side of the story. But unlike her son, who had this story about being blackmailed and that they didn't plan this murder, but they were being blackmailed by a gang who did the murder and then wanted to shake them down, that didn't work in front of a jury. So she doesn't have a story like he did about why all of these things happened or why she acted a certain way. So it's possible we could see this defense rest immediately. They don't have to put on any evidence and then explain it all to the jury in closings.
Julie Janae covering the trial. Julie, I hope you come back tomorrow. Thank you. And you've all heard of the Great Wall of China, but have you ever heard of this? This is the Wujian Canyon Bridge. It's also in China and is the world's tallest bridge. How tall? 2,050 feet. Now, to give you a frame of reference, it is more than 600 feet taller than the Empire State Building in New York and twice the height of the Eiffel Tower in Paris. But this bridge is not yet open. China just finished a key test to see if the bridge can handle enough weight. 96 cars weighing more than 3,000 tons were driven across the bridge. And, well, the Chinese can take a deep breath. It looks like the structure held up. This bridge is located in the Guizhou province. It will allow 2 cities in that province to connect with only a 1-hour drive. Without the bridge, that drive between the 2 cities is 5 hours. The bridge is scheduled to open next month. Coming up, wait until you see who's decided to go to college. That one, the record continues. This cool cat is off to college. That's right, it's time for college move-in day. More universities are allowing students to bring an additional roommate, their dog or cat. This cat, named Skylar, was headed to St. Michael's College in Vermont. Skylar is 9 years old. She's attending college with her owner, a sophomore named Chloe. Fun fact, Chloe is the sister of a producer on this show named Olivia. Skylar looks eager to start the school year and even more excited to explore her new dorm and nap in her new bed, kind of like a lot of college students. They nap a lot, sometimes all day. Rob Schmidt tonight is up next. People think news just happens. It doesn't. It happens because there's someone there to capture the moment, to explain it and share it. That's my job. I go where news breaks and give you the facts. Join me for The Record on Newsmax.